incapable, or VSM. Our mission, really, is to understand why our global systems seem so stuck, constantly lurching from crisis to crisis, unable to make fundamental changes. We're not just talking policy fails here. We're digging into the underlying design flaws, the structures themselves.
It's absolutely critical. The world we live in now, it's just fundamentally out of sync. We're drowning in complexity, this massive proliferation of variety. But our ways of organizing things, governments, companies, you name it, they're running on old software, basically. Reductionist thinking.
Reductionist meaning trying to break everything down into smaller, separate bits, like physics over here, economics over there.
Exactly. It ignores the connections, the whole system. And that disconnect isn't just inefficient. It leads to, well, instability. Catastrophic instability sometimes.
Yeah.
We lose the ability to learn to adapt.
So the problem isn't necessarily bad leaders, though that doesn't help, but the actual design of the systems they're trying to run. And cybernetics is the science that tackles this.
Yes, precisely. Cybernetics is the science of communication and control in systems, whether that's, an animal, a machine, or a whole society. It's inherently holistic. It asks, how do living systems manage to stay themselves, keep their identity, while constantly dealing with a changing world? And the key, the absolute core concept, is how they manage variety.
Okay, variety. We need to unpack that term because it's central to everything we're discussing today. It's not just like lots of different things.
Right, it's a technical term. It means the number of possible states a system can be in. Think of a light switch variety of 2, on or off. A thermostat dial might have, hundreds of states. A complex social system, the variety is potentially immense, almost infinite. But the key point is, variety depends on how you look at it, the observer's perspective and what you're measuring.
And if the world's variety is genuinely exploding information, choices, technology, how can any government, any CEO possibly keep up? It sounds overwhelming.
It would be impossible, except for a fundamental law discovered by W. Ross Ashby. It's called the law of requisite variety.
Okay, Ashby's law, what does it state?
Simply put, only variety can absorb variety. The regulator, the manager, the government, whatever's trying to control or steer the system must have at least as much variety as the system it's regulating.
But that sounds like the problem we just stated. A small group of leaders can't possibly have the same variety as millions of people or a global market.
Exactly. They can't inherently possess it. So they have to engineer it. They use 2 main strategies, what we call variety engineering.
Okay, let's break this down, because this feels like where things start to go wrong in our current structures. The first is reducing the complexity.
That's variety attenuation. The regulator deliberately simplifies the system it's dealing with, cutting down the variety it has to absorb until it matches its own limited capacity.
How does that work in practice? Laws, rules.
Yes, laws, policies, regulation standards, they're all massive variety attenuators. They take the incredibly complex spectrum of human behavior and say, okay, we're only going to measure or permit these specific states. Everything else gets ignored or punished.
Can you give an example of how this makes us, as you said, unwitting victims?
Think about insurance or the census. You are unique, right? Your health, your life, your risks, incredibly high variety. But the insurance company can't possibly model every single person individually. So they attenuate you. They squash you down into broad categories, age group, location, smoker, non-smoker. Your unique reality gets filtered out because their system can't handle it.
And education does this too, standardized tests.
Oh, absolutely. A child's mind has, potentially infinite creativity. But a standardized test demands one correct answer. It attenuates all that potential down to a single data point that the administrative system can process easily. The richness is lost for convenience.
And if this happens everywhere, all the time, we collectively start accepting this simplified, attenuated version of reality.
That's the deep danger. We lose sight of how the reduction is happening. Culture, media, education, they subtly narrow our perceived options, our ways of thinking. We end up in a kind of shared delusion. We think we're making free choices, but the menu of choices has already been severely limited to fit the regulator's capacity. We accept the low variety model as reality itself.
So attenuation cuts down the world's complexity. What's the other side of the coin? Increasing the regulator's capacity.
That's variety amplification. This means boosting the regulator's own ability to handle complexity. Structurally, the main way is through intelligent delegation, giving real autonomy to local units.
Why does autonomy help?
Because the highest variety, the most complexity, is always out there at the coalface, where the system meets its environment. If you give genuine decision-making power autonomy to those local units, like regional offices or project teams, They can use their local knowledge to absorb that complexity directly. It amplifies the overall regulatory capacity of the system.
And technology, you mentioned that earlier.
Technology is crucial here. Computers, telecommunications, these are potentially massive variety amplifiers. They should be used to help us manage complexity, not just to constrain people more effectively.
Which brings us to the viable system model, the VSM. This is the blueprint, you're saying, for how to structure organizations or even societies so they can handle complexity and stay viable using these principles.
Exactly. The VSM lays out the necessary and sufficient conditions for any system to survive and adapt in its environment. It's derived from studying how living systems work. The core idea is autopoiesis.
Autopoiesis, self-making.
Yes, self-making, self-renewing. Think about your own body. Your cells are constantly dying and being replaced. Over 7 years or so, you're almost entirely new materially, yet you persist. Your identity remains intact. That ability to constantly renew the parts while maintaining the identity of the whole, that's autopoiesis. The VSM is the organizational architecture that allows a company or a state to do the same thing, adapt its parts while staying true to its core purpose.
Okay, so the VSM itself has components, these interacting subsystems. Let's walk through them. System 1 is where the action happens.
System 1. Operations. These are the primary activities.
Yeah.
The parts of the organization that actually do the thing the organization exists to do. Making the product, serving the customer, teaching the students. Critically, they need to be as autonomous as possible. Why? Because they are directly facing the environment's complexity, its high variety. Ashby's law demands that variety be absorbed locally. So, autonomy here isn't a favor from management. It's a cybernetic necessity.
But if you just let all these System 1 units run wild, won't they just conflict, compete for resources, step on each other's toes?
Absolutely. That's why you need System 2 anti-oscillation. Its sole job is to dampen those potential conflicts between the autonomous parts of System 1. It harms a System 2 function. It prevents two teachers from trying to use the same science lab simultaneously. It manages resource clashes. But crucially, it doesn't tell the teachers how to teach. It's a coordination service, not a command structure.
And this System 2. This sounds like where bureaucracy comes from, the rules, the procedures, the coordination committees.
Bingo. System 2 is essential, but it's prone to pathological growth. If it becomes too powerful, or if the System 1 start optimizing their own internal rules instead of the overall goal that's pathological autopoiesis, the bureaucracy becomes self-serving. It consumes resources just to maintain itself, develops complex internal procedures that have little to do with the outside world, and it resists any change that might reduce its own importance. It becomes a parasite.
Okay, moving up, System 3, this is management.
System 3, the inside and now. This is about managing current operations efficiently. It looks inward at the System 1s. It monitors performance, allocates resources between them, conducts audits, ensures synergy. Its focus is internal efficiency right now. To do its job, it needs information from System 1, but aggregated, summarized information, performance metrics, audit trails.
So if System 3 is focused on inside and now, what balance is that?
System 4, the outside and then. This is the intelligence function, the strategic planning part. It deliberately looks outward and forward. It scans the environment for threats and opportunities. Think R&D, market research, long-range forecasting, competitive analysis. System 4 asks, given how the world is changing out there, how do we need to adapt to survive and thrive tomorrow? It's focused on adaptation, the future.
And finally, System 5 at the top.
System 5, identity policy. This is the ultimate level of closure and identity. It monitors the balance between System 3, now, and System 4, future. It sets the overarching policies, the fundamental rules of the game. Its crucial role is maintaining the system's identity, defining who we are and what we stand for as an organization or society. It ensures the whole system remains coherent and true to its essential purpose, even as it adapts. It administers closure.
You've highlighted the balance between System 3 and System 4 as absolutely critical, the inside and now versus the outside and then. Why is this balance so often the point of failure?
It's the System 3-4 homeostat. A homeostat is a balancing mechanism. This one has to balance the demands of present efficiency, System 3, with the need for future adaptation, System 4. And it fails constantly. Why? Because System 3 provides immediate, tangible results. Efficiency gains are easy to measure. They look good on reports. They reinforce managerial control now. System 4, on the other hand, deals with uncertainty. R&D is expensive. Future predictions can be wrong. Adaptation takes time and resources away from current profits.
So there's a natural bias towards the present, especially when things feel unstable.
Exactly. When the environment is changing rapidly, like today, you desperately need a strong System 4 investing in the future. But the pressure is always to double down on System 3, to optimize the current failing model. Think of companies like Blockbuster. They were masters of System 3 managing stores, inventory, late fees, but they completely missed the System 4 signals about digital streaming. Their homeostat was fatally biased towards the inside, and now Rolls-Royce had a similar crisis, focusing on perfecting current engine production, ignoring the need to adapt to market shifts. They almost collapsed. The internal system was perfectly efficient at doing the wrong thing.
The VSM also redefines autonomy. It's not just freedom, it's linked to purpose and cohesion.
Right. Autonomy isn't some vague political ideal in the VSM. It's a functional necessity. Maximum possible autonomy must reside down in System 1, where the environmental variety is encountered. Higher management, Systems 3, 4, 5, only has the right to restrict that autonomy for one reason: to maintain the cohesion and identity of the whole system. That's the law of cohesion. If a part's actions threaten the integrity or purpose of the entire organization, then its variety must be constrained. But only then.
But often, control is exerted far beyond that, just to make management easier or maintain existing power structures.
That's the pathology we see everywhere. Unnecessary attenuation of variety from the top, stifling the local adaptation needed for survival, simply because the central management lacks the requisite variety to handle genuine distributed autonomy.
Which leads us directly into why things seem so stuck today. This systemic pathology, the variety squeeze. If the VSM shows the way to viability, why are we trapped?
Well, first, the sheer pace of change. Technology is driving exponential change. Perturbations, economic shocks, pandemics, climate events, social upheavals are hitting the system faster than it can stabilize from the last one.
We're in constant reaction mode, perpetual crisis management.
Exactly. Leaders, managers, they're trapped. They spend all their time damping down the latest oscillation, trying to force the system back to some semblance of stability. There's literally no time or capacity left to think strategically, to plan for the future, maybe beyond next week's crisis. And a system that's constantly oscillating like that, it can't learn. Learning requires comparing outcomes against a relatively stable baseline. If the baseline's always shifting chaotically, you can't tell if your actions are working or not. Adaptation starts.
And our whole way of thinking reinforces this, the reductionist trap.
It's a huge intellectual barrier. We're trained, culturally conditioned, to see the world in fragments. Separate departments, separate disciplines, separate problems. So when a truly novel, holistic solution is needed, maybe for climate change or economic inequality, it has to be forced into the existing fragmented boxes. It has to be described in terms of existing budgets, departments, ideologies. If it doesn't fit those old, failed categories, it's dismissed as unrealistic, utopian, or just plain incomprehensible. The system literally cannot process a truly different idea.
And the institutions that should be expanding our thinking education, media, you're saying, they often act as attenuators instead.
Often, yes. Instead of amplifying our ability to perceive complexity and new possibilities, they function to reinforce the existing low-variety models. They drill in outdated ways of thinking, conventional wisdom that no longer applies. They celebrate solutions that fit the current structure, even if those solutions demonstrably fail time and again. And the more sophisticated the communication techniques, the slicker the media, the more standardized the curriculum, the more effective this cultural variety attenuation becomes.
There's an analogy here, sometimes discussed in the source material, about societal zoning, not literally geographic, but structurally channeling intellectual potential.
It's a powerful structural analogy, yes. This constant cultural conditioning effectively zones our thinking. It takes the vast potential of human creativity and intelligence and squeezes it down into approved channels, narrow definitions of success, acceptable discourse. It creates this shared delusion of reality where our choices feel free but are actually confined to a tiny spectrum that the existing system can manage. It fundamentally limits our collective cerebral variety, our ability to even conceive of genuinely different futures.
And if someone does break through with a radical structural proposal, System 5 kicks in.
System 5's role is closure, maintaining identity. When faced with a proposal that threatens the fundamental structure, the identity of the system itself, this is not who we are, it activates powerful defense mechanisms. The person or idea proposing the change is labeled as deviant, dangerous, a threat, a parasite, or virus trying to destroy the system. They're systematically marginalized, ignored, or attacked. This means genuine, deep structural change is almost always resisted from within, often requiring a catastrophic external shock to force adaptation.
This is where we need to make the link to the human cost. It's profoundly disturbing. How does this systemic failure, the squeezing of variety, connect to something like the rise of isolated nihilistic violence?
We have to look beneath the surface labels. When we see these tragic events, particularly involving young men, the reports consistently highlight themes of social isolation, difficulty integrating into the economy, holding jobs, a disconnect from established social groups.
They don't fit the standard molds, the system hasn't got a place for them, or they reject the places offered.
Precisely. The system offers a limited set of low-variety pathways to recognition and success. Follow this career path, adopt this political label, conform to these social norms. But what if an individual's internal reality, their own complex thoughts, feelings, their personal cerebral variety, simply doesn't map onto those narrow slots? They become invisible, unheard, a cipher. Their sense of freedom becomes a cruel joke because the available options don't reflect their inner reality. They're attenuated by the system.
The system's filters, media, politics, even local community structures are too coarse to register their individual signal.
Their signal's too complex, too high variety. Often these individuals don't fit neatly into left-right boxes. They express contempt for the entire system, all authority. They are unpredictable precisely because they operate outside the established low-variety categories.
So the violence, it becomes a desperate last-ditch attempt to send a signal.
It's a form of pathological variety amplification. If all conventional channels for expressing your variety, for being recognized, are blocked or attenuated, then generating a signal of extremely high amplitude, a catastrophic act, becomes the only way to force the system to acknowledge your existence. It's a horrifyingly distorted way to achieve requisite variety, to make the world register that you are. It's the terrible human cost of a system that structurally fails to accommodate the true variety of human experience.
It feels overwhelming. Is there a way out? Can we actually redesign our systems based on these cybernetic principles?
We have to try. But the answer isn't finding some all-wise philosopher king that inevitably leads back to authoritarian closure, System 5 imposing its own limited variety. The solution has to be structural. The structures themselves must embody freedom and adaptation.
And technology is key, using it to amplify rather than constrict.
Absolutely. We have these incredibly powerful tools, computers, networks that are currently often used against us for surveillance, for control, for automating outdated bureaucracy. We need to flip that. We need to use them as amplifiers of human capability, of regulatory variety, allowing for more complexity to be managed effectively and locally, using tech for the good guys, so to speak.
Like this Cybersyn project in Chile. That was a real-world attempt at this, wasn't it?
It was a remarkable, albeit short-lived example. Under Allende, they used the VSM as a blueprint to link Chile's nationalized industries in real time. Computers, a telex network, even microwave links connecting factory floors to central coordination rooms. The goal wasn't top-down control in the traditional sense. It was about amplifying information flow. Workers could report issues instantly. Managers could see the whole economic picture develop in real time.
But doesn't that sound like Big Brother, ultimate central planning?
That's the common misunderstanding. Because it was built on VSM principles, it was recursively structured. Real autonomy, System 1, stayed at the local factory level. The technology amplified their ability to manage local variety and provided the higher levels, Systems 3, 4, 5, with the rich, real-time feedback needed for effective coordination and strategic steering. Cybersyn's demise was due to external political upheaval, not a failure of its cybernetic design. It proved, conceptually, that large-scale, real-time adaptive governance using technology is possible.
Thinking about technology today, this current pushback against AI, especially in creative fields, calling it slop, resisting its integration, does that fit this pattern of resisting variety amplification?
I think it's a perfect contemporary example. On the surface, it's debated as art or ethics. But cybernetically, AI represents a massive potential amplifier of variety in creation and analysis and communication. It threatens to disrupt established low-variety models of expertise, artistic merit, the talent gap. It forces a confrontation with complexity. So the existing system's defenses kick in. System 5 closure tries to delegitimize the amplifier, label it as invalid, to protect the current identity and power structures. It's predictable resistance.
So beyond technology, we also need to mobilize human creativity itself, art, ideas.
Yes. Art, philosophy, critical thinking, these are essential engines for expanding human perception, for generating the new variety the system needs to adapt.
Sure.
We need structures that foster this. Cybersyn even planned to involve artists and musicians in designing the interfaces, making the information flow intuitive and engaging. The goal is a self-organizing system where learning and adaptation are built in, maybe even unstoppable, because creativity is harnessed, not suppressed.
And how do we get genuine feedback from people if traditional polls and surveys are just more variety attenuation?
We need the algedonic alternative. Instead of asking people to fit their complex feelings into simple boxes, approve, disapprove,
Right.
rate 1 to 5, which throws away most of the information.
Algedonic meaning pleasure and pain.
Yes, measuring the state of the system directly. Are people, the system 1 units, experiencing well-being or distress, pleasure or pain? This provides incredibly rich, high-variety, real-time feedback without forcing it into preconceived categories.
What would that look like?
There's a classic anecdote. Equipping a factory floor with simple dials where workers could indicate their level of satisfaction or stress throughout the day, feeding directly into the manager's office. Apparently, it was the first time the manager had real insight into the state of the workforce. Imagine applying that to governance. A minister gives a policy speech and sees a real-time public well-being indicator plummet. They get immediate, undeniable feedback. They know the public knows they know. It forces accountability and rapid adjustment based on actual human experience, not filtered, low-variety data. That's closer to harnessing the real will of the people as a high-variety System 5.
So wrapping this all up, the core message seems to be, our crises aren't just bad luck or bad policies. They're a result of fundamental flaws in how we structure things. A failure to manage variety.
Precisely. The way forward isn't necessarily more organization in the old sense, but the right kind of organization structures designed according to cybernetic principles, designed to embrace complexity, devolve autonomy, and amplify adaptation.
It requires a fundamental shift in thinking, away from the reductionist models we're comfortable with.
It requires what you might call an anti-paradigm approach, a willingness to accept that our cherished models of how the world works might be, frankly, wrong. Initiated by the very variety attenuation they impose, we have to constantly question the assumptions embedded in our structures in our own thinking.
Which brings us to a really final, perhaps unsettling thought. Our own brains are finite. We have to simplify reality to cope. We build internal models, attenuating the infinite variety of the world just to function.
And that's the ultimate cybernetic challenge, isn't it? We are variety-reducing machines ourselves. Even our most intimate models, our understanding of our partners, our friends, he's not himself today, low-variety judgment, are inherently flawed, lacking requisite variety. We filter reality through incredibly limited senses. We see a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum, hear a narrow band of sound frequencies. We don't even truly touch things in the way we imagine its electromagnetic fields repelling each other. Given these profound limitations, how sure can we really be about the world our models present to us?
We risk being absolutely certain about a reality that's, as the source material puts it, very much cut off at the knees.
Exactly. So the final takeaway isn't just about organizational design. It's a call for profound intellectual humility, a constant questioning of the models societal, organizational, and personal that define our certainty in a world far more complex than we can ever fully grasp.